Have you ever felt like the world kept spinning, but somehow you were no longer in it? Not because you died, not because you failed, but because you became invisible. You still show up, you still breathe, but something's missing, something you can't name. Conversations don't land the same. Eyes pass through you like you're not there. People adapt, systems move on, and slowly, you become psychologically irrelevant. There's a knot in your chest that never loosens, an ache behind your eyes that no one sees. Your presence used to matter. Now it barely registers. You weren't broken. You were bypassed. And the worst part? No one noticed. They didn't even have to push you out. They just replaced you. That's not a metaphor. It's not philosophical exaggeration. It's the quietest existential collapse a person can live through. You were conditioned to believe that if you're not needed, you're nothing. You learned to disappear without even knowing you were doing it. And now, you're alive in a life that no longer reflects you. But here's the truth. You were replaced, but not deleted. And that changes everything. Because today, we're going to do what no one else did. We're going to see you. We're going to name the quiet despair, strip away the learned invisibility, and rebuild your identity from the inside out. No fake optimism, no superficial hacks, just raw truth, ancient wisdom, neuroscience-backed tools, and the power to reclaim your agency, your meaning, and your place in the world. You didn't come here to vanish. You came here to resurrect. So if you've ever felt forgotten, replaceable, or like the background character in your own life, keep watching. This isn't the end. It's the first time you finally saw what's real. You didn't wake up one day and vanish. It didn't happen in a single obvious moment. It was slow, quiet, like a fog creeping in, until you couldn't see yourself anymore. What you feel right now isn't just sadness. It's not boredom. It's not lack of motivation. It's existential despair. The kind Kierkegaard wrote about when he said the greatest sickness is not being dead, but not being yourself while alive. You're not just tired. You're unmirrored. People used to reflect you. Their laughter confirmed you existed. Their eyes, when they lit up, reminded you had weight in the world. But now, you enter a room and feel lighter. Not in a good way, but as if your presence doesn't register, like the air bends around you without resistance. And here's what's really happening. Your identity is dissolving, because identity isn't built in isolation. It's built in mirrors. And when those mirrors turn away, or worse, forget, you begin to lose the architecture of who you are. You tell yourself it's in your head, that you're being dramatic. But deep down, there's a pressure behind your ribs, a voice inside your chest that whispers, "I'm disappearing." This is not imaginary. This is psychological displacement. Your selfhood quietly becoming unmoored from social reality. Kierkegaard didn't describe this kind of despair as screaming or chaos. He called it the despair of not knowing that you're in despair. That's what makes it so dangerous. You keep functioning. You go to work. You reply to messages. But you've started rehearsing a version of you that no longer feels like truth. And no one notices. Because you learned how to perform the part convincingly. You smile on cue. You nod. You disappear politely. But here's the brutal truth. If the world stops reflecting you, your mind starts collapsing inward. Not with drama, but with erosion. A little less certainty each day. A little more numbness. Until your emotions become static, your body moves out of habit, and your soul feels like background noise. You weren't meant to live like that. You weren't meant to be a placeholder in your own life. So what do you do when your identity no longer echoes back from the world? You name it. You drag the feeling into the light. You call it what it is, the silent suffering of being unseen. Because once you name the invisible loss, you can start rebuilding the architecture of your presence, not through validation, but through conscious recognition. And this leads us to something deeper. What if being replaced wasn't an act of cruelty, but the natural byproduct of a world that runs on apathy? What if you weren't rejected, just forgotten? Let's look at that now, through the brutally honest lens of Schopenhauer. You weren't rejected, you were forgotten, and that's what makes it worse. Rejection stings, yes, but at least it acknowledges you existed. Apathy? It leaves no trace, no confrontation, no closure, just silence. Just the cold vacuum where connection used to be. And here's what's really happening. You're not being pushed away. You're being quietly replaced by systems that run smoother without you, by people who adapt without asking if you're okay, by routines that no longer need your input to keep moving forward. Schopenhauer called it the cruelty of indifference. To him, life was not evil. It was empty, meaningless unless filled intentionally. And when life fills itself without you, it creates a specific kind of suffering. You start believing you were never necessary, not because someone said it, but because no one said anything at all. There's a moment, maybe you've felt it, when you walk into a room and nobody looks up. Your stomach sinks, not because of what happened, but because of what didn't. You weren't acknowledged. You weren't needed. You weren't missed. That's not paranoia. That's emotional neglect. And over time, this absence rewires your brain. You begin to feel like furniture, always there, never noticed, like background noise, present but irrelevant. You stop speaking up. You stop initiating, because deep down, you've internalized the belief, my presence has no impact. Schopenhauer didn't offer comfort, he offered clarity. He exposed how human beings suffer not just from pain, but from emptiness, from waking up in a life that feels increasingly mechanical, automated, cold. It's not dramatic, it's not cinematic, it's a kind of invisible erosion that happens when the world stops asking for you. And here's the brutal truth. The moment you believe you're easily replaceable, you start acting like you don't matter. You show up halfway. You lower your voice. You edit your presence until it no longer feels like you. That's how internalized irrelevance is born. But let me say this clearly. You are not irrelevant. You are not replaceable. But unless you fight against the silence, unless you reclaim your sense of emotional gravity, the world will continue operating as if you're optional. So how do you fight that? Not by begging to be seen, but by rebuilding from the inside, by reclaiming agency in a world that forgot your name. Because even if life runs on apathy, you don't have to. And that's where we shift. From philosophical collapse to sovereign clarity. From being displaced to building something unshakable within yourself. Marcus Aurelius called it the inner citadel, a place no indifference can touch. Let's go there now. So the world forgot you. It moved on without pause. People adapted. And you were left watching your relevance dissolve like smoke in cold air. But here's what Marcus Aurelius would say. You don't control the world. You control your response. That's not a platitude. It's a weapon. Because once you realize you've been psychologically displaced, you have two choices. Collapse into it, or build your own center of gravity. Aurelius called it the inner citadel, a fortress within the self that no external indifference can touch. You feel like the world made you invisible? Then it's time to become undeniable, not through noise, but through sovereignty. And this is where Stoic philosophy stops being abstract and becomes a survival tool. Your nervous system is wired to seek validation, to feel mirrored. But when that mirror breaks, you can't just wait for someone else to repair it. You have to become your own reflection. So what does that look like? It looks like writing to yourself every morning, even when no one's listening. It looks like aligning your actions with your values, even when no one's watching. It looks like choosing stillness when the world feeds you chaos. Agency doesn't begin with action. It begins with clarity. What do you stand for when no one is clapping? What's your worth when no one is watching? Those answers shape the walls of your citadel. And yes, it's hard, because everything in you screams, what's the point if no one sees it? But that voice, that's the echo of learned invisibility. It's not truth, it's residue. The truth is this: you can't control whether people validate you, but you can control whether you abandon yourself. Self-abandonment is the slowest form of self-betrayal. And the world, with all its noise and forgetting, trains you to do it daily. But not anymore. Because agency isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about choosing you, over and over again, even when no one else does. So you write, you reflect, you move, you speak with weight, even if the room stays quiet. This isn't delusion. It's radical discipline. It's how you reclaim meaning in a world that outsourced it to algorithms and speed. And here's what's beautiful. Once you build your citadel, the world can forget you, but it can't move you. And this leads us to a deeper realization. Yes, sovereignty matters. But if you're being displaced socially, it's not just internal clarity you need. You need to understand the external dynamics of power that silently pushed you aside. So now, we turn to Machiavelli. Not to manipulate, but to navigate. You've built your inner citadel. You've stopped begging to be seen. You've started choosing yourself. But here's the part no one tells you. That still doesn't guarantee the world will remember you, because power doesn't just respond to inner strength, it responds to positioning. And this is where Machiavelli steps in, not as a manipulator, but as a mirror. He understood something most people refuse to admit. Power is perception. You can be brilliant, resilient, and deeply aligned, but if no one sees you as relevant, you disappear from the game. Not because you're weak, but because you're unstrategic. This is the brutal terrain we're in now, where invisibility isn't always emotional. Sometimes it's social displacement dressed in silence. You weren't exiled, you were outpositioned. The room didn't push you out, it simply made room for someone else. And here's what's really happening. When people perceive you as optional, they stop listening before you speak. They move on before you arrive. You become a background fixture in your own environment. This is not a call to manipulate. It's a call to become undeniably strategic about your presence. Machiavelli taught that power isn't seized through noise. It's taken through precision, through watching, understanding, and placing yourself where your absence would be felt. So ask yourself this: where have you allowed your influence to fade? What spaces have you stayed in that no longer demand your voice? Influence doesn't return through passivity. It returns through recalibration. Recalibration means intention in how you move, how you speak, what you give energy to. It means using fewer words but making each one matter. It means showing up not for approval, but for impact. Presence is a psychological force, and when you stop asserting it, others stop adjusting to you. That's how silent exclusion works. Not by removal, but by reshaping the space around you to pretend you were never there. But let me be clear, you don't have to claw your way back into their awareness. You just need to become the person whose silence is noticed, whose absence creates discomfort, whose energy shapes the temperature of a room. That doesn't come from dominance. It comes from strategic relevance, from knowing your weight and placing it deliberately. You're not here to be everyone's favorite. You're here to be unforgettable. So if they've replaced you socially, then it's time to redefine your position, not your worth. And this leads us to the emotional engine that drives reinvention. Because strategy without feeling becomes sterile. To truly reclaim presence, you must navigate the storm inside first. That's where Susan David's work comes in. Emotional agility as the bridge between what you feel and how you show up. So now you see it. You weren't just excluded, you were silently repositioned, made replaceable in places that once reflected your worth. You've started reclaiming your power, your presence, your strategy. But if you try to do all of this while ignoring what you feel, you'll collapse from the inside out. And this is where most people fall. They think power means pretending. Pretending they're not hurt. Pretending they're not angry. Pretending they're over it. But here's what's really happening. That grief you've been swallowing, it's not weakness. That flicker of rage when you're overlooked again, not pettiness. That deep ache in your chest when someone treats you like you're disposable, that's not overreaction. That's data. Susan David calls it emotional agility, the capacity to feel everything without being owned by any of it. And if you want to rebuild your life after being replaced, you need that agility like oxygen. Emotional agility isn't about positive vibes. It's about psychological flexibility, the ability to hold space for discomfort without becoming it. Because here's the brutal truth. If you don't process your emotional pain, you'll start performing over it. You'll say, "I'm fine," when you're suffocating. You'll chase validation when all you really want is to feel seen. And you'll call it discipline when it's actually emotional disconnection. You've been told to move on, but no one told you how. The path forward isn't pretending the loss never happened. It's standing still long enough to name it. I feel invisible. I feel discarded. I feel angry that I had to earn back my place. Those aren't complaints, they're truths. And once they're named, they stop owning you. Because clarity creates choice. You can feel grief and still choose presence. You can feel rage and still choose strategy. You can feel rejection and still move with purpose. This is what emotional agility gives you. Separation between what you feel and what you do. And in that space, that's where freedom lives. Because now, your emotions become compass points, not chains. They reveal what you value, what hurt you, what matters enough to feel. And that clarity, it's not just healing, it's fuel. When you stop fearing your emotions, you stop needing others to regulate them for you. And that's when the shift happens. You're no longer reacting to the world that forgot you. You're responding from the person you refuse to abandon. And this leads us to the next step, because now that you're grounded emotionally, you need to learn how to regulate the body that still remembers the trauma. That's where Daniel Siegel comes in, with a map for navigating your nervous system when you're overwhelmed, and a way to stay inside your window of tolerance, even when the world pushes you out. You've named the pain. You've stopped performing over it. You're starting to respond from truth instead of reaction. But your body still remembers everything. No matter how emotionally agile you've become, your nervous system is still carrying the weight of being invisible, excluded, replaced. And if you don't learn to regulate it, you'll keep getting pulled out of yourself, again and again. Here's what's really happening. Your system was designed to protect you, but now it's misfiring, interpreting silence as danger, interpreting indifference as attack. So your heart races when you're ignored. Your jaw tightens when you're left out. Your body shifts into survival mode, even when there's no threat in sight. This isn't weakness. This is neurobiology. Daniel Siegel calls it the window of tolerance, the optimal zone where your brain and body can think clearly, feel fully, and choose wisely. But when you've been psychologically displaced, your window narrows. You either shut down emotionally or spiral out of control. Neither option gives you your power back. And that's why this chapter matters. Because self-awareness means nothing if your body is stuck in a trauma loop. So how do you stay inside the window? First, understand the signs. If you feel numb, blank, disconnected, you're below the window. If you feel anxious, flooded, on edge, you're above it. Your job is to return to the middle, to the place where presence lives, to the place where agency becomes possible again. You don't do this with willpower. You do it with regulation. And here's how. Breath work. Not just deep breaths, but intentional exhalation. Longer exhales calm the vagus nerve, signaling safety to the brain. Somatic anchoring. Ground your attention in your body. Feel your feet on the floor, your hands on your lap, your back against the chair. Remind yourself, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm not in danger anymore. Micro movements. Gentle stretching, walking, shaking out tension. Not to fix yourself, but to discharge what never got released. Because the truth is, being replaced isn't just emotional, it's physiological. Your nervous system logged every moment you were left behind. Now it needs a new script. And that script doesn't start with thoughts, it starts with state. When you feel regulated, you think clearly, you speak with precision, you move from choice, not panic. And most of all, you stop outsourcing your stability to the world around you. This is how you reclaim psychological sovereignty, not just in theory, but in your bones. And this leads us to something even deeper. Because once you've regained access to your inner calm, you'll start noticing something disturbing. You've been conditioned to expect replacement. It's not just what happened to you, it's what you started believing you deserved. That's where B.F. Skinner comes in, to show us how this conditioning was built and how to dismantle it. Your nervous system has started to settle. You've learned how to regulate your state, how to anchor yourself when the world forgets you. But now we have to ask the harder question. Why did you start expecting to be replaced in the first place? Here's what's really happening. This isn't just trauma. It's not just emotional neglect. It's conditioning. B.F. Skinner, the father of behavioral psychology, showed us something terrifying and true. We don't just respond to what happens. We respond to what gets rewarded or ignored. You weren't born with the belief that you were forgettable. You learned it. Every time you expressed a need and were met with silence, your brain took notes. Every time you showed up and no one acknowledged it, your nervous system adjusted. Every time your emotional presence was skipped over, a pattern was etched deeper into your identity. And that pattern whispered something corrosive. My absence is more comfortable than my presence. That's not a belief. That's a loop. Skinner called it reinforcement, a process by which we internalize outcomes and adjust our behavior to avoid pain or chase approval. So what happens when your emotional truth is consistently ignored? You stop sharing it, not because you healed, but because you were trained to silence yourself. You start shrinking. You delay your needs. You become hyper-aware of other people's moods, constantly adjusting, performing, minimizing, until one day, you disappear from your own life, and no one had to push you. You did it yourself. This is how learned invisibility is born, not through cruelty, but through repetition. You were never told, you don't matter. You were just never shown that you did. But here's the brutal truth. If you don't interrupt that loop, you'll keep rehearsing your own disappearance, no matter how much self-awareness you gain. So how do you break it? Start by noticing the micro moments. The way you downplay your ideas in meetings. The way you hold back your truth in conversations. The way you leave yourself out before anyone else can. Then, choose differently, deliberately. Say the thing. Take up space. Make the eye contact. Finish the sentence you always trail off. These aren't performances. They're reprogramming cues. Because every time you show up fully, even if your voice shakes, even if no one claps, you're telling your nervous system, this is safe now. Rebuilding visibility isn't about proving your worth. It's about reminding yourself that presence is not a threat. And this leads us to the final shift. You've seen the mechanics of your disappearance. You've felt the ache. You've started rebuilding. But now, it's time to go deeper. Into your biology, your wiring, your social brain. Because as Andrew Huberman explains, you can rewire belonging itself. Let's finish this. You didn't disappear. You were trained to step back, conditioned to shrink, rewarded for silence. And now you've started to break that cycle. But here's what's really holding you back. Your biology still thinks you're alone. Even after all the reflection, the strategy, the inner work, your social brain is still wired for withdrawal. Andrew Huberman explains this with brutal clarity. Social disconnection physically changes the brain. It weakens neural circuits tied to reward, motivation, and emotional regulation. Your brain, over time, stops expecting closeness and starts building its identity around absence. That's why it still feels hard to reach out. That's why joy feels muted, even when things go right. That's why a small text left on read can hijack your entire nervous system. It's not that you're broken, it's that your brain has been protecting you from something it no longer needs to fear. So what now? You rebuild those circuits on purpose. You teach your brain, moment by moment, that connection isn't danger anymore, that you don't have to earn belonging. You have to practice it. This is not about fixing yourself. It's about rewiring what got damaged. Here's how it starts. Light exposure in the morning regulates cortisol, increases mood stability. Physical movement, even a short walk, activates dopamine and resets internal chemistry. Eye contact with safe people stimulates oxytocin and reestablishes trust in the nervous system. Micro interactions, genuine smiles, a hand on your chest, presence with another human being. Small, but powerful reminders to your brain. I'm not exiled. I'm still here. I still matter. And the more you do this, intentionally, gently, consistently, the more your social circuitry comes back online. You'll feel it. The tightening in your chest loosens. The numbness fades. You find yourself laughing, not out of politeness, but because you feel something real again. This is what reconnection looks like. Not dramatic, not overnight, but gradual, steady, internal. You stop living like a shadow in your own story. You start making decisions like someone who deserves to be in the room. You speak up, without over-explaining. You reach out, not for rescue, but for resonance. And most importantly, you begin to trust yourself again. This is not a fantasy. It's neuroscience. It's psychology. It's choice. You were replaced, but you were never deleted. And now, you're back, not begging to belong, but rewriting what it means to belong to yourself first. That's the shift. That's the return. That's the resurrection. And this is only the beginning. Because now that you've remembered who you are, it's time to build a life that never forgets you again. So here you are, not at the end, but at the beginning of something you were never taught to believe in, the return to yourself. You thought this was just about being forgotten, just about feeling invisible. But now you see it for what it truly is, a long, quiet unraveling of self that began the moment you stopped being reflected by the world. You weren't just replaced by others. You were slowly convinced that your presence was optional, that your silence was safer, that your absence was easier to carry than your truth. But look at what you've done. You've pulled back the curtain on that invisible loss. You've walked through despair, not around it. You've reclaimed your agency, rebuilt your internal world, and faced the emotional debris left behind. You've stopped performing pain and started processing it. You've stopped reacting and started responding. You've disrupted the conditioning that trained you to disappear. And you've begun rewiring your brain, not to chase belonging, but to embody it. That's not a mindset shift. That's a resurrection. And it didn't come from toxic positivity. It came from truth, from strategy, from science, from sitting in the fire without flinching. You did this. You, who thought you were behind. You, who felt like background noise. You, who wondered if you'd ever matter again. Not only do you matter, you are now undeniable. Not because the world says so, but because you remembered yourself. And here's something no one tells you. You don't have to go back to who you were. That version of you was built in survival. What comes next is built in sovereignty. So stay here. Don't walk away now. Not from this. Not from you. If this felt like everything you needed to hear, it's because you've been carrying this knowing in your chest all along. I just helped you unlock it. But this journey doesn't stop here. You're not behind. You're just waking up. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and more importantly, stay present. Because this isn't a channel. This is your homecoming. Welcome back. We never stopped waiting for you.